Peoples, good afternoon. It is Wednesday, December 27th, and I am here with your geopolitical news. Al Jazeera reports Turkey's Erdogan says Netanyahu no different than Hitler as Gaza is bombed. The Turkish president asked if what the Israeli leader is doing in the besieged enclave is any less than what Hitler did. So now you have the Turkish president Erdogan. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But now you have the Turkish president comparing Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli leader, to Adolf Hitler. Now, if you put that into contrast, that statement is not only profound, but it is true. Because there's no way that you can see what's going on in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip, and you can see it as being untrue if you know the history of Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. And I was having a conversation, and this is kind of off topic, but I always wondered how Russia became an enemy, adversary to the United States of America, and Germany has become an ally. As the world turns, some of these actions are unexplainable. Some of them don't even make sense. But you would have to be behind this you would have to be in the regime. You would have to be in this government. You would have to be behind this iron wall, so to say, for you to be privy to what's actually going on. In other geopolitical news, Al Jazeera reports pro-Palestine activists block entrance to JFK Airport. So now I'm going to play a little clip of this. And so it's important that you understand what you're seeing. Now, I am an NYC resident. I live in New York City. So, you know, for a conflict to be happening around the world, you understand? In a distant place, in a distant region, far off, somewhere across the world, but yet the conflict be so dire, the conflict garners so much attention that is causing conflict in other places around the world. So that conflict itself is triggering other conflicts. And so, God forbid the police department reacts aggressively, or too aggressive, should I say, towards these people that's just protesting. Seems like they're having a peaceful protest, but at the same time, you're blocking traffic, you're blocking places of business. And so I'm from New York City, and I know that there's only a certain amount of time that the authorities will allow something like this to continue before they interject and it be either escalated or it be dispersed. And so this is just another example of what's happening. And it's been protests all throughout New York City, especially in lower Manhattan. And I just seen the video on, I believe, Christmas, where individuals were detained for what I can only gather was disturbing the Christmas carol. And so there was a protest down there, and from the video that I seen, there were a handful of people that were arrested and detained. And so if you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on, at the end of my videos, I tell you to stay vigilant and to be safe. At times like this, you need to be aware of your surroundings, aware of what's going on around you, and be very safe because tensions are very high, not just in the city of New York, but around the world. In other geopolitical news, Al Jazeera reports Russia accuses U.S. of threatening global energy security. Moscow slams Washington's sanctions on a new LNG plant in the Arctic as unacceptable. Russia has claimed that U.S. sanctions levied against the Arctic LNG 2 project undermine global energy security. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman hit out on Wednesday at Washington's unacceptable move to clamp down on the massive Arctic LNG 2. The sanctions are just the latest measure implemented as the West seeks to limit Moscow's financial ability to wage war in Ukraine. So once again, here you have the United States placing sanctions on Russia because of the war in Ukraine, which some might even argue the United States had a hand in starting. And so, in retaliation, the United States has placed sanctions on Russia. But you see, where it becomes problematic at is Russia supplies not just Russia and that region, but Russia supplies different parts of the world, even the United States for that matter, with different raw materials, different goods, different grains. And so for you to sanction such a large importer and exporter of goods that the whole world needs, and not to mention this is an energy operation. So this situation right here was to bring energy, once again, not just to Russia. You understand? And so the United States, because of their issues with Russia, because of the war in Ukraine, you will place sanctions on a nation, on a country that is so useful on the world stage because you don't like what they're doing. And once again, as I said previously, a war that some might argue you very well helped start. And so The United States has placed sanctions on Russia. I, since I've been following this story, one could argue that it really hasn't mattered. I mean, Russia's economy has suffered, but it was suffering before the war, and so it suffered, some, but the economy is actually doing better than from the start of the war up until now. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that Russia is not only Russia is not only commanding respect on the world stage as it relates to the invasion of Ukraine, but they're also brokering deals with other nations, other countries that don't rely on the US dollar. And if you understand anything about finances on a world stage, this is essential because so many countries are trying to get away from the US dollar. And so you see organizations like the BRICS nation coming together, trying to forge new unions that are not backed by paper currency, but are backed by more tangibles. And so the world is seeing the shift right now. And depending on where you're at on the map, some would say that there's some troubling times ahead as it relates to finances. Okay, so yesterday I covered a story about what's been going on in Nigeria, where armed militia groups have attacked hundreds of civilians. Some are dead, many are injured. So I'm gonna play this clip right here so you get some context.
Hello there, welcome to the programme. I'm Laura Kyle. The Nigerian government says at least 160 people were killed in attacks by armed groups on remote farming communities over the weekend. Another 300 were injured and many are still missing. It's the worst violence in the Central Plateau state in more than 5 years. Village leaders say it began on Saturday and continued until Monday morning. No group has claimed responsibility, but nomadic herders are believed to be responsible.
So, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but over the weekend, while many of you were celebrating, you know, Christmas Eve and also celebrating, Christmas Day, this is what was happening. You understand? So, there was protests, like I said, in New York City that were in opposition to the celebration of Christmas because so much not only tensions but so much conflict is happening around the world that some people don't really understand how one could celebrate at a time like this. But once again, here's another conflict that's happening on the continent of Africa, in Nigeria, where armed groups have attacked civilians, and this just happened over the weekend.
Herders and farmers have been locked in a decades-old conflict over access to land and water. Why has the Nigerian government failed to prevent these attacks? And what does it mean for the country's wider security problem as it faces challenges on multiple fronts? We'll discuss all
And
this.
so that leaves one to pose the question: is this the reason why Africa is experiencing so many coups d'etats? Like, is this the reason why the certain military factions in Africa have sought to take over, have sought to move presidents out of their positions because they're not actually helping the people. Some of these governments are not actually helping at all. And so crime is still happening. People are still dying. People are still starving. Meanwhile, the governments and presidents of said countries, they're rich. Some of them don't even live on the continent of Africa, but they govern places in Africa. So put that into perspective. Some of these individuals don't even have a plan to live or to stay on the continent of Africa. They have retirement plans set up for them by whatever Western country that they're being a puppet for. And so I'm on a X platform formerly known as Twitter. Captain Ibrahim Traore is probably a hero to many. And just by following his story, what's been going on in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, this individual, and he's a young individual as well, but this individual is what revolution, what freedom, justice, and equality is all about. Here's an individual who's seen injustices happening in his country, and rather just be a average soldier who follows delegations. No, he went above and beyond. Him and his comrades went above and beyond. They put the people first. And so when it comes to wanting to being a citizen of, calling the place your home, your land, if it is not governed by individuals who will put the people first, then what is the point? Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about this. Did you know about any of these stories? How do they make you feel? Drop a comment in the comment section, and always remember, stay vigilant, stay safe, peace.